Bienvenidos al quinto episodio de Mano a Mano, Historias que inspiran, un espacio donde vamos a conocer experiencias de vida de profesionales y personas que aman lo que hacen y por qué decidieron estar donde están o hacer lo que hicieron. Soy Milagros y les cuento que esta será mi primera entrevista en inglés. Está conmigo hoy Andriy Rey Victorov, inmigrante ucraniano que vive en Argentina desde principios de este año. Los subtítulos estarán disponibles en el episodio que se suba a YouTube, así que espero que la disfruten. Welcome to the fifth episode of Mano a Mano, Stories that Inspire. I'm very excited to announce that this will be my first English podcast. My guest is Andriy Rey Victorov. Thanks, Ray, for your time and for your willingness to have a chat with me today. Who are you, Ray? How can you describe yourself?
Hi, Millie. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's something that I never done before, and I'm really super excited about it for the opportunity. And it's a life-defining moment for me, I have to say. Well, I am. I could say I'm five things. I am an editor. I am a son, a brother, a romantic, and a patriot.
Oh, great. Thank you. It's been 17 months since the beginning of the war in Ukraine, since the President Vladimir Putin, in a televised speech, announced that Russia will be sending a military operation to the Donbas region. How do you feel when you hear this?
Good question. When you said that, I tried to recall what did I hear that news back then, and I realized I did not, because for the last 5 years I was living in Ukraine, obviously, but I was working in English language. So I was always in English discourse. So of course everything around me was in Ukrainian and like my family, but my friends, my co-workers and my job was all in English in Kyiv, in capital of Ukraine. So again, when these news, when you said that, I felt of course a bit, something touched inside me, but back then I did not hear him speaking about that, and it got since I was working in English all the time, for me it was like a background noise, honestly. Like I was in the middle of everything in Kyiv, and everybody was like anxious, everybody was talking about the war, and I got in touch with the BBC journalists from BBC British channel through my friend, and he from London, and they got in touch with us, and 1 week before the war, and they wanted someone on the inside in Kyiv to describe what the situation like. And since, as I said, I've been talking English all this time, and I had friends who we also record podcasts with about Ukrainian football in English. So me and my friend from London, we got in touch with the journalists, and they asked me to shoot some scenes, like some videos of myself, like selfies, in this unstable time before like the announced war, because the war the hell broke loose on 24th of February. And it was maybe February 16th. So I felt fine because, as I said, I felt detached. I was there, but I was having the time of my life, playing football with expats, with foreigners, and they were all leaving country. My colleagues left country as for diplomatic reasons, because they're for their own safety. So they got like an indulgence from their governments, from British governments, American governments, to leave the country, and they did. And I saw that happening. I saw my world kind of collapsing, like not in a bad way, but just like my friends leaving, my colleagues leaving. I was like, okay, so the puzzles doesn't add up. So they stopped adding up. And so, I kept recording these videos for these guys the week before the war, and then the war started. Yeah. And the first thing I did, I was approached by them again. So on the day when everybody fled, like my apartment block, it has 47 flats, and 39 were empty. So only 8 left, and I was among them, because there were a few reasons for that. One reason is that I was detached. Second reason is that it was then, and now that I barely have anything to lose. Like I have nothing to lose, so I'm just like, I couldn't say I don't care because I care. I'm a human being, but still it's kind of like, like rebelliousness and all this, all or nothing. It's not fatalism, but still like some kind of, I don't know, determination. And third reason is that I was not afraid. Like I had my independence. Like my independence is 42 square meters in size because
Your
my
apartment.
Yes. And I bought it in January. I lived there for 2 years, and I bought it in January 2022.
Okay.
Before the war, and so I kind of gambled. I had a chance to, I sold my old apartment, my parents' apartment, because my parents died, and I sold their apartment, and I got the money, and I had a choice to leave straight away or to buy an apartment. And I decided to do that, and that apartment basically was the symbol of my existence during these darkest times.
Yeah, I see. What happened with your parents?
Well, my mom died of cancer, and my dad died of heart condition in a period of 3 months in 2021. So first my father, and then my mom. They were divorced, so they lived separately, but still it was like a challenge, a huge challenge for me. Yeah, and it came in this specific moment where I was getting my teaching license because I'm an English teacher. And I got it from Cambridge. So I prepared my course and I finished it. And right in the end of the course, I got the news that my mom died. So I had to stop it and I had to move back. And even when I wanted to continue it, because I had like 1 week left, and I was doing good. I didn't worry about it. But I obviously had to come back.
Yeah.
And they said that you cannot do it because the procedure is that you're gonna repeat the course next year. But I used all my art of persuasion to change their mind, and I finished it in the same month. So I continued working, and it helped me. It helped me cope with the loss and the work. So I was busy, and also the people around me, also alcohol and women. But that's another topic.
It's another. Well, I'm glad you could do it. Despite of the loss, which is of course very sad. But yeah, that's great that you moved forward. How did you get to Argentina? Did you have any connection here?
Yes, I had a friend here. First time I visited Argentina in 2019. That was the first year I started working as a teacher in the English surrounding. So I started making money and I could afford that. So I went with my mom and her husband. And as three of us went to Buenos Aires, and we stayed in Panamericano Hotel, which is now Marriott, I believe.
Yeah.
And then we went to Chile, to Santiago and Valparaiso. And it was symbolic for me because Santiago de Chile is the brother city to my neighborhood in Kyiv, Oboland.
Interesting.
Yeah,
this was 2019.
Yes.
Okay.
So Santiago is the brother city to the part of my town, which is kind of weird, but especially weird it sounded when I talked to Chileans, and it's like, that we have a monument and we have a square of Santiago de Chile where I grew up, and it's like, it's local, like we can't believe it.
Yeah.
And in Buenos Aires I met the girl she was a bartender in my hotel, and she told us that she's from Cordoba, and since then for 3 years we kept in touch. And in the darkest times, as I mentioned, in February 2022, she texted me like, if anything, you can come anytime. So she told me about Cordoba, and it was like a magnificent gesture because why would you care, right? I mean, you don't reach out to people like that, especially in that condition. But I remember that. And when I got the first chance I got, I went to Cordoba. And I loved it here, and I found a job here, and I even came back to Cordoba once already. So I'm feeling like I'm coming back again.
But you came 7 months after the war.
Yes, in October.
Okay. And how was the day you decided to leave Kyiv? How did you feel?
To be honest, I felt a bit of disappointment when the war started because I had a chance to leave, like I told you before. Like I had a chance to either leave or buy an apartment, and I bought an apartment because I feel like it was one of the first mature decisions in my life. Because it was not random, it was not spontaneous. Even though now I say that any Ukrainian you ask about who saw the war, with his or her own eyes, never ask Ukrainians about their plans.
Okay,
because after what we went through, it just never gonna happen again. Like for us, we're not gonna plan anything anymore because you can see it ruined in seconds.
Yeah,
and I saw that, not for myself, luckily, but in my city. Like I've witnessed 7 bombings in 7 months.
Wow.
So yeah, one time it was a beautiful night. I mean, it was sunset. I came back from gym. I was really excited. I turned on my projector to see the football match, and we were about to record a podcast.
Okay.
And I'm standing there, and I hear this sound like somebody speeding on a motorcycle, really loud. But then I realized that it's like a bit too loud, and I see these rockets just coming down, and I see the pink explosion, and then the sound. So that's how it works, and it was so random and it was so routine.
Yeah. What did you do?
I just stand there for like 5 seconds, and just realizing it's happening for real. Then I picked up my phone and texted the guys from my podcast, guys, probably not gonna happen. Neighborhood under attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was probably the 4th time I saw the bombings, because the first time it was 5 a.m.
Okay.
And it felt like the plane crashing down.
Oh,
God. Like it was that loud. And I remember these the blast and the bright light.
Okay.
It was literally, I don't know, maybe across the road from my place. But luckily it was far enough so the windows in my apartment didn't break. Because you're concerned about it. Because when this explosion hits, I know it sounds completely irrelevant to most people in their lives, but when the explosion hits, the wave goes through the glass and it breaks it. And it's just annoying, since I care about my apartment so much.
Of course.
It would be annoying for me to replace the glasses. But yeah, I mean, but that's literally what Ukrainians were focused on, because the last time I saw the bombings, I actually, I was with someone. I was with my girlfriend at the time in the morning, and we heard loud bang in the street, and I was like, oh, that's probably construction site. And then I get up to look in the window and I see this smoke across the city, and they were bombing us again. But the thing I'm saying is that it felt so normal.
Yeah.
Because the previous time before that, it was 7 a.m. and they bombed in the morning, and I walked to see the results of the bombings. And I remember the guys wearing robes and drinking coffee in the balconies, just looking around minutes after the bombing.
Just like a normal life.
Absolutely. Not even like a movie, like a reality show or something. Just, okay, so they're shooting something. No, they're not. It's real life. But Ukrainians just grew that persistence, that spine inside of themselves. So, which sounds completely irrational and surrealistic, but that's how we are, and that's why we're not going to make any more plans.
Yeah, good to know it. Good learning. And it was easy to come to our country. How did you find it?
Into Argentina?
Yeah.
Yes, it was easier than I expected. But one reason is that I was on this pursuit of I don't know. The only reason I left Ukraine is because I wanted to work abroad.
Okay.
Because as you said, the day I left Kyiv, how did I feel about it? I felt disappointed when I couldn't leave at first, so it took me 7 months. And the whole time I was reaching out to find out the opportunities to leave the country, and eventually I did. But I realized in the end, after these 7 months passed, that this was extremely valuable. It was existential to spend this time in Kyiv and defending my independence, and with the loved ones. So it defined me. And I could never, if you ask me, would you like to change anything in those 7 months? Never.
Okay.
Never, ever. And also, that was the thing. I arrived to Argentina, and it took me a week, and it took me so you go across the ocean, you go through Europe, then you go through South America too, and then you end up here. And so as I said, I was kind of I had nothing to lose, so I was like, okay, I'm start knocking on doors, and now that's how I found my job in English school here. And it kind of took off from then. And then I got my visa to Canada. I went to Canada, and now I'm back here, and then I'm probably going somewhere else. So it's just like, of course, I'm considering coming back to Ukraine, but maybe in the next 2 years.
Okay, good to know that. So you didn't have to apply for a visa to come here.
No,
it just
no, yeah.
Okay. Taking into account that you flee your country due to personal matters, what is your position on the war?
Right, that was what I already mentioned. I felt completely fine with the war. Like a lot of people ask me now in Argentina, because I host the parties for expats every week, and a lot of people ask me, "How do you feel about it?" And I say I feel fine. If you ask me that someone reaches out to me and says, "Ray, we need you back home tomorrow," I'm yours. I will be there, because I had. It's gonna sound weird, but I had the time of my life during this period, honestly, because it was defining me as a personality. It was existential. It was the turning point in the history of the country. Basically, you could say that Ukraine, the independence of Ukraine, was really born on 24th of January. Oh, sorry, February 2022. Yes, and that counts for every person present there. Because, of course, like I saw 7 bombings, but there are people who suffered much, much more. They lived under occupation. They lost their loved ones because of the war. And it's a huge sacrifice. And it's huge. The Ukrainians are a thing, like the personality, the character.
Yeah.
What we went through the last year, it's just, it's incomparable. And it's extremely interesting. to investigate, my people, and I'm proud to be a Ukrainian. What can I say?
Wow. And what do you think about Zelensky?
I was never a fan of his, honestly. Before the war, I was never a fan of his, and even when the war started, we were like, okay, so it's the governments, like the kind of like the things that he was always a figure, right? He was always a representative. So
he was an actor first.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. So he compared himself to Ronald Reagan, and when he was being elected, and he was always like covering, because a lot of troubles were in Ukraine before the war, but the people who trusted Zelensky, like, okay, he's there, so while he's there, it's gonna break loose. And the thing that changed on February 24th. Is that he didn't flee right away. So all this time I was in Kiev, I felt like I'm with my president.
Yeah.
So because he was basically on the other hill from me in my city, like I'm here and he's just like a couple blocks away. So it was like this unity as well, because it's a huge thing that a lot of Ukrainians admire about him, and I think people across the world, that he said, I don't need a ride, I need ammo. Because when he was asked, like, you need to leave, we're gonna get you out, and he said, no, I need ammo, give us ammo. So he was there, he stayed, and that's enough. That's all he had to do, and I stayed too. So I saw it with my own eyes, and again, I told you that it was a time of my life, because I enjoyed it. I don't know, some people call it fatalism, because you can only feel like living when something like that happening. Because I mentioned before to other people that I loved the pandemic, and then all people hated it because they felt their like issues, with like socializing and stuff.
Mental health.
Yes, but I was just fine. And same with the war. Of course, it's incomparable.
Of course.
I'm talking about these, defining moments when, worlds colliding, and when such thing happen, a lot of people flee, a lot of people just suffer. And some people act. So I suppose I'm one of the people who act.
Mm-hmm. Great. I would like to ask if there is more that unites Russia and Ukraine, or that separates them.
It's only about separating now for the general population of Ukraine, because unfortunately, before 2022, it was a huge percentage of Ukrainians who were still speaking Russian, who were still not noticing the war, because the war lasts from 2014, but a full-scale war which affected everybody in the country and the whole world started in 2022. And that was the turning point for many Ukrainians. But before that, a lot of people were still hanging on to all these connections with Russia, and it was disgusting, in my opinion. So that's what I used to say, that, before that, Ukraine was probably, we have 40 million people in Ukraine. Only 10 million of those people were Ukrainians. The others were just, in and out. But now it's more one-sided. It's more about, as you said, separating us from Russia. And also, I consider myself as a Bohemian nationalist, Ukrainian Bohemian nationalist, because that was the label given to people like me, to people who care about Ukraine, in 100 years ago by the Soviet Union. So that's why they started hunting down the Ukrainians, the political figures across the border. Because fact is, when you hear nationalists, you feel like, okay, that's probably radical. But the fact is that Ukrainian nationalists are the most educated, most well-rounded, the most active people you could ever imagine. They are good. Vikings would be proud of them. Because they say that my city Kiev was founded by Vikings.
Oh, good.
2,000 years ago. And right now Ukrainian nationalist is the thing, is the core of the nation, and what Ukrainians need to thank for, the army, obviously, and the core of the army is the people who define themselves as Ukrainians, just like me. But also, since I mentioned the Bohemian nationalists, 100 years ago, all of Ukrainian nationalists, the defining people in Ukrainian history, were all abroad, and they all died abroad, and they were hunted down, they were killed, they were murdered, most of them. And the poets, the politicians, the scientists, basically, if you Google Ukrainian heroes of Ukraine, most of them acted abroad. So what they did was they established an image of Ukraine abroad, and that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm acting for. That's what motivates me. That's what moves me forward. So I define myself as a contributor to Ukrainian image abroad, to the image of Ukrainian, you could say, new Ukrainian, or just Ukrainian, because a lot of people didn't know about Ukraine, right? I can ask you about that, but it's just
it's not the moment now.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's obviously just like for Ukrainians who were hanging on to the Russian connections before 2022, same for people all around the world. They thought it's is it the country near Russia?
Yeah.
And last year, all of the news broadcasts I saw were about this city in Ukraine, this small city in Ukraine, like Lviv, Kiev, Odessa, and everybody was talking, oh, you're from this city, okay, I know everything about it. I was like, how do you know, guys? Oh, right, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
so right now it's really, in grand scheme of things, of course the war is going to stop at some point. And what do we have to do with it, right? Because I realized that I saw the war, and a lot of people are still dealing with the war, obviously. They are the real heroes, the people who are now contributing in Ukraine. So they're standing, and they're not giving up. But people like me have to think about, who work abroad and who connect with the outside world of.
I think you're also dealing with the world, even though you are outside the country.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. But that's the thing. It's how you represent. It's what you do, how you contribute to the image of Ukraine, which is going to be led after the war. Okay, so right now, of course, I'm not fighting on the front lines, but we are doing something in advance, and that's what we have to realize. People like me who are abroad, they cannot be misjudged. They cannot be taken for granted, because they contribute hugely, just by the fact that they define them as Ukrainians.
Absolutely. And how is Kyiv? I mean, how can you describe your city?
It's an urban city. It's my best friend. This city is my best friend. I know it, and I know that it can be vengeful city if you mistreat it. And so I'm proud to be from this city, and it's an urban. It's actually, it's really compact. It's like Cordoba for me, because I can walk around Kiev and I like it. and it has the highest number of skyscrapers in Europe.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's number 7 in the world. And I still remember feeling like the pulse of the city, because I live, like the apartment I described to you, it has access to the roof, and it's like the 17th floor, and you have a lovely skyline around. Beautiful. And yeah, it's just like it's incomparable with anything. And of course I'm still there. Like part of it is always going to be there. Right now it's standing. It's being bombed, of course. My family is there, but they're safe. We live in the same neighborhood, so we get in touch every week.
Okay.
My grandma lives in my old neighborhood, Obolon, and I get in touch with her as well. So, as I described Ukrainians previously, they just deal with it. You can ask them about, how is it, how is that, what are we talking about? Like, something flew by, something exploded, whatever. I need to go grocery shopping today. What are you talking about? Like some kind of like routine stuff. Yeah, but it's there, and I admire my city right now because it has been a real symbol of like a fortress. Because as you know, like Russians, they advanced really fast in the first days of war, and they were really hunting down Kiev. They were really going for it, and they occupied the region of Kiev, like the province, but they never entered the city. Well, they did enter the city. They never take over the city.
Yeah, take over.
And that was the hardest point in like the first month of war, when I was there. And I stayed there because I realized that I have to protect like my independence, and I just have nothing to lose. I was ready to meet the enemy, like face it.
Wow.
Yeah, I was fine. I could tell you that I bought like a nail gun. Because I saw a movie previously, and it was with Zoe Kravitz, because I'm a huge movie guy, and Zoe Kravitz used a nail gun to shoot the bad guys, and I was like, that may work. So I picked one for myself, because it's not a weapon, so it's kind of legal. It's a tool. Like... And also I prepared Molotov cocktails to throw them wherever. Yeah, I bought a knuckle duster to keep myself safe in the streets, because they used to say like we still have the curfew. Mm-hmm. And it was really strict in the beginning, because the curfew could last for like the whole weekend. So you should buy your groceries, you should stay in your apartment, don't even open the windows at night. Don't switch on the lights if you don't have to, because it's all the sign for the spies, for the agents, for the enemies, because they can be anywhere, the collaborators and all that. It was really dangerous, and that's why I kind of like geared up with all these tools. Because I was ready. It's a harsh thing to say. I realized that, but I still feel like that, and I felt that in the first day when I was interviewed by BBC. I told them, right now, people like me and people around me, we know that at least one dead Russian is good enough. And of course they cut it. They cut it from the interview because it's like BBC standards.
Yeah.
But I said them, and they were like shocked by it, but that's how we felt at that moment. Like, even if we get one enemy down, but we die, it's still good enough. We did something. So
okay, interesting. And what do you think will be different when you come back?
Oh, good question. Yeah, in 2 years or more, everything's going to be different. The problem is, as you asked me about the connection with Russia, Ukraine proclaimed independence in 1991, but it only took 30 years to really establish ourselves as an independent country. To ourselves, first of all, like not me, but as I said, 10 million before, but now it's like the other 30 million finally realized that they are Ukrainians. They don't need any other country than which is under their feet. Because I always say that for Ukrainians, the main thing is the land. So the happiness for a Ukrainian is the land of his. That's why I'm so excited about my apartment, because this is like my land, right?
Yes.
So, yes, and...
Your piece of independence.
Absolutely, yes, and the symbol. And when I come back, I said about 30 years because it was really slow. So this realization, this innovation, this change, this switch, and the click in the mind, in the brain, when your brain clicks and you realize something, quite slow. You have to face it. The paradox of Ukraine is that it's both agricultural and IT. So we have huge specialists in IT. As far as I remember, Ukrainian guy invented WhatsApp. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he patented it. So that's his invention. And right now we're like our brain force, I think you could call it that. So a lot of our guys work in Silicon Valley, in California, and across the world as programmers. But also Ukraine is a huge exporter of wheat, like the grains. So it has a really rich land. That's why historically we've always been conquered by someone who wanted a piece of our land. So we are both agriculture and IT. And it's kind of like this paradox doesn't really let us choose one. Because as Ukraine itself, it's always been between Asia and Europe.
Yes.
I call Russia Asia because it's really, like, for me, it's an Asian country. But, and that's why we have to be flexible. So this is the paradox. We either hang on to our traditions or we innovate. We either be flexible or we stand on our grounds. So, and this was never resolved throughout my time in Ukraine, which was kind of like a paradox because it feels like Ukraine doesn't want you. And that's how I felt, I have to be honest, because like, I tried everything and I just couldn't break through this ice. But in the end of the day, you realize, is it really worth it? You know, of course, it's your country and your city and you're still Ukrainian, but you have to be, at some point, you have to sober up.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of happened. So answering your question, I hope that the change would be immaculate. But we just have to be reasonable and we have to be cautious. We have to be on the lookout to not repeat. I don't think we can repeat any more mistakes. We're not able to. It is going to be different, and I would be happy to contribute to Ukraine on the land. But right now, all I'm focused about is to establishing the image abroad.
Although you came to Argentina after the World Cup, it was a very special period for us. The world has seen the pictures, the crowd, the people shouting, celebrating. What did you get of that experience?
Yeah, I remember I left slightly after the loss to Saudi Arabia.
I'm sorry, I've asked the previous question on purpose because I know that you're a big football fan.
Yes.
And well, that's why I asked.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a podcast on Ukrainian football in English for the last 2 years. And, we didn't discuss Mundial because Ukraine wasn't there. But it was a huge experience for me because, as I said, I left after the guys lost to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And I remember small girls going from school in the Argentina jersey, because they obviously watched the game while they were on the lessons, and they had the flags painted on their cheeks. Mm-hmm. Not Saudi Arabia flags, Argentina flags, of course. But this is something I'll remember for the rest of my life, because this religion, which you have as football, like football is seen as something above routine.
It is.
It's a symbol, and that's what we don't have in Ukraine. That's what I would love to have in Ukraine. And that's what I feel like about my home team, Obolon Kiev, which is from my barrio, and it started as from the neighborhood, like from the academy, and that's how I was raised as well. So it means a lot to me. So yeah, I'm proud to see the triumph of Tres Estrellas.
Yes.
And Dibu Martinez, I was so happy about him, and just being here, just breathing the air full of love of football. It's incomparable, and watching Super Classico.
It's impressive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And tell me about your Ukrainian team.
Yeah, well, we have Super Classico coming shortly because my team promoted to the Ukrainian Primera División, you can say.
It's Obolon.
Obolon Kiev, yeah. It's started as a neighborhood team from my barrio and from a neighborhood, sorry. And it got a sponsorship by local brewery of Quilmes, because Quilmes is also part of Buenos Aires and the brewery. So that's where we connect. But it was never about the brewery itself. It was about the people of my neighborhood. It was the huge rivalry of the academies, because we have the academy in my neighborhood, which is called Zmina, change in Ukrainian, just symbolic name, right?
Yeah.
We talk about changes today a lot. So this is how my team started. The first name of the team was Change, and the academy was always a rival of the biggest club in the Ukrainian history, Dynamo Kyiv, which is also the capital team, and they are white blue, and we are white green. So this is a real clash. We are looking forward to Super Classicos, like the Kyiv derby, This year we're gonna have 2, and the first one is going to be really soon this summer, and then in winter. Oh, I'm confused because now it's flipped. Like in Europe, it's summer and then it's winter, and in Argentina it's the other way around. So anyway, August and December, I'm looking forward to these dates because they're like sacred dates, because my team is going to play our biggest rival, and it's symbolic for me because my father, he brought me to my first game of my team when I was 9. So and since then, it's almost 20 years now, because I'm 28, and next year is going to be 20 years since I'm a fan of my team. And it came from my father, who was also always a supporter of Dinamo.
Okay.
Which is so symbolic because, in the first time we played like our Super Clásico, Bologna Dinamo in Premier League in 2010, we were losing 2-0 and we drew 2-2. But I didn't know about that until the next day because I was on vacation. And I didn't have a smartphone back then. It was not about internet that much back then, Wi-Fi and stuff, no. So we had to call each other. And my father called me and he asked me, do you know how the match finished? And I was like, we lost 2-0. I was like, it's 2-2. And he congratulated me. And he acknowledged back then my fanatism of not his team, but my own team. And it was a huge moment for me. And that's why I'm so excited about Super Clásico this time, because it's always, it's always a personal story for me. So I'm crazy about it.
Amazing. And you're also a sociologist, right? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I didn't mention that I'm a sociologist when you asked me who I am, because I called myself an editor, because eventually I came to realization that's what I am, because a sociologist can be a spy, can be a private investigator, a detective, and that's what I am about. I'm all about character study. So the other thing which moves me forward rather than, establishing the Ukrainian image is studying characters. That's why I'm a host of the parties. That's why I'm a teacher, because and also a big film person, because I apply a lot of sociology and acting as well in my teaching. So the creative aspect is always there. But I would never, sociologist is for me, it's not a profession, it's a lifestyle. It's a way of living. So it stays with you forever. So you study documents, you study history, you study characters, and it's all with you. And it's not something you make money with. It's just how you think, how you live. So I can work anywhere, because sociology is science about people. So anything concerning people, I'm in. So that's why I cannot define myself as an English teacher as a whole, because now, as in kind of a transferable period of my life, it's in transmission between the countries, the professions, what you do, how you speak, how you think. Sociology is what keeps me on the ground. But I can do various things, and that's what I'm open for doing. I don't feel uncomfortable in shifting jobs, because also I mentioned I went to Canada before coming back to Argentina this year, and I went to Toronto, and the first job I got, as you mentioned, I'm an immigrant, so I found a typical immigrant job of a carpenter, something I'd never done before. So you work with your hands, you make decent money, honest a day work, and I did it, and it was completely fine with me, because I realized that it's not about you being selfish or arrogant or saying no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, definitely. You never know,
Yes, of course. That's what a lot of people need to be open to, because some people, as I said, they cannot handle change, and they really suffer because they used to do something really prestigious, something really meaningful, and then they lose everything in one moment, and they cannot just decline, or they cannot lower down, take 2 steps back to take one huge leap forwards, and that's what most people are not capable of. But I'm more simple about it, I don't see a problem in that, and that's what also enforces me inside, because it's an important quality, and I'm happy that I'm capable of it, and it's also part of being a sociologist, and it's also part of being comfortable with what you do in your life.
Excellent.
So that's why, and coming back to the editor thing, is that I'm a creative person, but I don't think I'm that much of a content creator. I'm more I can I can advise something, I can help with something, I can help change something, and I prefer to be backstage. I mentioned I'm a film person, and I studied film directing, filmmaking, but
Where did you study?
It was in New York. So I started in 2012 in summer. It was New York Film Academy summer camp on Manhattan.
Amazing.
2 blocks from Wall Street. Yeah.
Oh,
So
God.
yeah, and
the center of the world, you know.
yeah, well, and New York is my favorite city of all time. Absolutely. Like, of course, you have Kiev, but New York is just the thing. And I was there. It was before my last year of school, and I was always a movie guy, a movie geek, a freak, and I wanted to do filmmaking. I went there to find out what is it about. Is it about me? Like, do I want to do that? And I shot a movie with the old school black and white film camera, like film reel camera, like Ariflex. And it's a real film reel, so we had to edit it after that. So we went through the whole procedure.
It sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it was a once in a lifetime thing. I hope I'm gonna come back to it. But again, I mentioned that I did it. Then I came back to Ukraine. I entered the filmmaking university and I quit after 1 year because I realized that after New York, when they said you have your iPhones or any smartphone at that time, shoot. And then I came back to Ukraine. I finished school, and 1 year later, I entered university because the filmmaking in Ukraine is it's a difficult thing because only 14 people were chosen, and I amongst them, across the whole country.
Only 14 people?
Only 14 people, okay. Yes, to start, this filmmaking journey. And what they said to us was, write. You're poets, you're artists, you will not be
appreciated. Like most European mind,
Yes, artsy stuff.
It didn't fit with US.
It did not, because I knew how it works in the real filmmaking world in New York. I mean, where else would you see it unless it's United States, right? So, and it kind of it was the usefulness, the clarity, and the effectiveness of doubt. So I doubted what they say to me. I doubted, they needed us, the masters of our course. They wanted to have us like tabula rasa, like the clean sheets, and then they would insert what they have. But in the end of the day, I kept doubting that because I knew how it was in New York, my experience and performance. And in the end of the day, I realized that these guys who were my masters in Kiev in filmmaking, they were kind of like, they were injecting us with their disbelief in this profession because they never made it big, unfortunately. They were like, okay, you're the bohemia, now you're the elite, you are the creators, you're the masters, but you're not going to be treated fairly. Never expect that because you're going to suffer. You need to suffer, and your perfect story should come out in pain and suffering, in blood and sweat. And I was thinking, like, well, why the drama? And then I realized it's because these guys never made it big. Mm-hmm. They never knew how it is to be successful.
Yeah.
Just that. Or to be, like, inspired by something. And that's why it felt for me when I quit myself, because they were really surprised, because it probably my rebelliousness from high school, which led me to it, because they said, it never happened to us before. Why do you quit? I mean, you're good. You can continue. Because I could. Because being honest with you, we had the filmmaking exam in the end of my first year, and acting exam. And I had the material. I wrote a screenplay. I once woke up in the morning and just had screenplay in my mind. No suffering, just like a typical rainy day in Ukraine. I woke up with it in my mind. I wrote it down, and it was good. And they said, okay, you got it. You can shoot it. You can shoot your exam work. And for acting, I also found a good piece of material. And I decided to leave. And I left my filmmaking material and acting material with them. And it helped two of my colleagues to pass the exam. Because they were so, apparently they're so empty. They were so, they didn't have any idea because they were in huge stress. Yes. And I understand, because when you being told that we don't believe in you, you're nothing. Yeah. You're elite, but you're nothing. So they took this material and it helped them to pass the exam of directing. One guy took it for directing. And the other woman, she got her acting exam with my material.
Wow.
So I could totally pass that, but I decided to quit and I never felt a bigger relief in my life.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
After I left this career back then.
That's an important thing.
Yes, and now it's been 10 years, and I realized that I would rather be a studio executive, an editor, or an agent, manager, backstage.
Backstage.
Yes.
Yeah. And What are you passionate about, Ray? I think we already talked,
Yeah,
but
let's narrow it down.
If you have to mention something.
Character study, film industry,
Great.
And football.
Interesting. So it matches the the things we already talked about. And as a sociologist, if you have to describe Cordoba's society, what words will you use?
Passionate, colorful, artistic, open-minded, cheerful, non-stop partying.
From Monday to Monday, actually.
Yeah, and very chill. I mean, the rhythm of life is a pure joy.
How do you deal with the language barrier in your daily life?
Well, I really appreciate the Cordoba accent. I mean, I realized that I never hear it anywhere else in the world. Like acento Cordobés, I mean, I study it and I love hearing it, and it's with me forever. Because whenever I go in Mexico or in any other English-speaking country, I'm not going to take on the accent they have, because this is the one which I have now, and it's gonna stick with me, and I will stick to it, no matter what.
Do you believe that the things you were worried about before coming here have changed after this experience?
Well, I couldn't say I was anxious about coming here. It felt like a right move, honestly. I was, at some point when I left Kiev in October, I was in Berlin, and I remember I woke up. It was my, I think, second day only abroad, away from Ukraine. And I woke up in the morning, I was feeling anxious. I was thinking, like, what if it doesn't work? Because you have to, it was on the go. Like, I left, I crossed the border with Poland, and then I went to Germany, to Berlin, and I was buying tickets on the go. So I bought air ticket to Barcelona. Then in Barcelona, I bought a ticket to Buenos Aires, but it was through Colombia. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Bought the tickets to Santiago, and then from Santiago to Buenos Aires.
And then Cordoba.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So it was a long trip. And I was doing it on the go, and I remember waking up in Berlin feeling anxious about how it's going to be. And right now, since some time has passed, almost a year, it feels I smile when I remember it, because it was a terrifying feeling, but I was so close to Ukraine. It's just ridiculous. Why would I ever worry? Now I'm 15,000 kilometers from home, across the ocean, and I feel as calm as ever, honestly. But then in Berlin, I was like a few hundred kilometers away. And I could totally come back anytime. It was not a huge deal to if something goes wrong. But somehow, I remember I felt anxious back then. But it passed quite quickly. And I was not anxious about Canada neither. I kind of probably this, relentless and this, ruthlessness to myself. First of all, I don't really care what happens. So I'm just drives me forward. So I totally. My expectations about Cordoba and Argentina only excelled, only improved, and only grew on me. So now I feel much, much more in love with the country.
This is really good. I'm glad for that. And what do you like most about Cordoba? Is the school here similar to Kiev?
No, absolutely not. It's more like you call it an institute, because it's an after school. So guys go to their schools, like private or public, and then after school, it's like an after school activity. They go to study English in the academy where I work. And that, you could say that it's similar in terms of I went through the similar academy when I was a kid, because I studied English for 10 years. Well, even if your teacher is still studying English, so because it's changing every time. But my education as a student lasted for 10 years, and in the same kind of academy. But of course, here in Argentina, the academy I work for, it's been around for 20 years. It's North Star English School, and it's a real family. It's kept it's very healthy environment, which is really hard to find. It's a really rare and valuable distinguishable value, because some environments can be toxic, some colleagues can be upset or like misled. But
Yes.
in this case, it was a real family, and I chose to come back here, as I mentioned, because I was working in Canada. First, I worked as a carpenter, but then I eventually found a job as a teacher, which always sounds like I was bewildered by it, because an English teacher in Canada, what for? What about? But I worked with Chinese students.
Yeah.
And back then, they really wanted me to stay. They wanted me to stay until the July, actually, because and they even said, oh, we have a summer camp in China. I was like, we might as well go. I was like, okay, yeah. But I never felt like a family there. They told me like, okay, it was a small school. So it had much less students than Argentinian one. And they said, oh, yes, I celebrated Chinese New Year with these guys in Toronto. And I also attended a few Ukrainian parties there. So that's what I'm saying. Like in Toronto, it's challenging to find a Canadian.
Yeah.
And I heard Ukrainians every week. So anyway.
It's a multicultural city. So.
Yeah. And I came back to Cordoba because I never felt like a part of something in Toronto, honestly. And I remember it's because I spent a month with this school before I went to Canada last year. And I knew I needed to come back because I came back for the students. I came back for the people and for my colleagues who really trusted me, who picked me up from the street, basically,
Yeah.
Because as I said, I was knocking on doors. And and I really appreciated this time. And it was, back to basics, because also the teaching style is really different because it's not that digital as I got used to. It was, it's all about, movement and about connection and about games, which you play like actively. Because, you mentioned pandemic, coming through pandemic and teaching through pandemic, you don't move a lot. You don't mingle, you stay on your seat, you wear masks. And that's probably what I never shook off from me, because it's always with me. And it was a thing which established my teaching style. I'm kind of like, I don't say I keep distance, because all of my students, like, I invest in them, and it always finds feedback from them. We always have chemistry with my students. But something I noticed I never did was actually, making the students move around and, play games like with, I don't know, papers or objects, basically, because when I left this academy here in Cordoba, my replacement teacher, the first thing she did, she started playing games with them, like the active games, like they were starting moving around, like a physical education exercise. And that was like, when I came, I noticed that it's the thing that you do here, but it was never my thing. And I stayed too close to I kept doing my thing.
Yeah.
And I thank my employees in this school, my colleagues, to let me do that, which of course it worked, and it worked a treat for them, and they appreciated it. But they were never enforceable with like authority. Like, no, you do it our way. They never tried to change me, and I will be forever grateful for that.
Great. Where are you going now, Ray?
I hope I will stick to Americas. Because I have still the Canadian opportunity is always there, but I'm always curious to investigate Central America, maybe Mexico. Maybe I can teach in Mexico. And I'm working on that now, but maybe even if it falls through, because you never know, I might go to Canada. Even if I get in touch with my family, and my family, I know now they're going to Belgium, because my sister's father, he has a work in Belgium, and he said that he's going there. If he says that we need you, I'll go there. So I'm open for everything, but right now, I'm focused on, as I said in the beginning, establishing the image of Ukrainians
around the world.
Yes.
Ray, we are almost the same age, and Argentina is not facing a war, but I don't know how it's to live without inflation. In other words, we are having a war against inflation, like all the time. How did you get along with this?
I worked as an Argentinian in my academy. I worked for pesos, and I led a really simple life. Not gonna lie, it's something I picked up here. And I found an absolute peace with it. I'm peaceful about it. I'm not anxious about it. I don't panic. I don't see a trouble in it. I not being vain about it because, I come from Kyiv, which is, for me, a capital. And I believe these days it's a capital of Eastern Europe, right? One way or another. Okay. And it's a big city. It's an urban city, multicultural. And people there, if you make it to Kyiv, that means you made it in life. I think it's like Buenos Aires, I don't know, like any capital in the world, like you go from outside and go to Buenos Aires or Kyiv or whatever. But yeah, and it's so people can be vain. And I used to say that I come from Sin City because yes. It's a compliment, actually. In my case, it's a compliment because, you have to be, why I'm a fan of character studies, that you have to be vigilant about people around you. You need to be, counting 2 steps ahead. It's overthinking maybe a little bit, but it helps because you have to hold on to your angst, because it keeps you on edge, where I found myself a lot and when I need to be. So that's what I meant when I said that it's really chill in Argentina, because it's hard to sustain an edge. Yeah. Maybe you guys don't even need an edge to be on, But in terms of change of lifestyle, a huge change of lifestyle, yes. So in Kyiv, it's all about how much money you make and how do you dress and what kind of image do you make? How do you present yourself? And that's why it's tough. It's tough to carry on because I found myself in Cordoba.
In Kyiv.
Yes, in Kyiv, because even in small towns around Ukraine, people when they go to a restaurant, it's a huge thing for them. They dress up, they put on makeup, nails done all the time. Ukraine itself is about women, because you call Argentina patria, which is kind of like patriarch. Yeah, about the padre. Yes. Mm-hmm. But Ukraine was always about motherland, mm-hmm. The figure of mother, the figure of woman. So Ukrainian women, they're the strongest in the world. The trickiest and the strongest in the world. Not gonna lie, but that's why Kyiv or any other city in Ukraine, people really know how to present themselves, and that's a huge thing. And that's why here, what I said, that it's really chill, and it's not a problem to be poor. And it opened my mind and my eyes to a lot of things in life which are really simple and which are necessary. Because in Kyiv, when you chase this an unidentified ideal, an illusion of success or illusion of vain image of yourself, which you're not, basically not being who you are, not the real self, but your digital copy, let's say, in the matrix. You live in the matrix. And you forget forget what it's like to be real. And I found myself reaching out into deep within my character here in Cordoba, thanks to my friends and the people I meet. I'm happy to say that I'm in love now, which I couldn't probably have said before in Kyiv, because I always tried to be more detached, but now I'm not afraid to say that, and I'm not afraid to face love with all these its consequences, what it has in store for us. Because as I said, I found myself being more truthful with me and with my personality, with my character, and I realized that the simple things in life, they are still real.
Yeah. Wow. And what do you think about mate? Have you tried it?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I love it. I love Fernet as well.
Are you gonna miss it?
Yes. A lot of people ask me, after mate, they ask me about Fernet. I love Fernet too. I'm going to miss Fernet.
That's really good to know. Is there any tradition, song, food that you would like to take with you as an Argentinian stamp, maybe, in your next experience?
Absolutely. So I start my day with alfajor and criollo, a común. Then I eat milanesa with chimichurri.
Oh, God.
Then I take some facturas, and of course I also take, I forgot the Spanish name, I'm sorry, but yeah, medialunas and all the other stuff, the lomo.
Lomo,
yes.
Which is a very typical here in Cordoba.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what else? Empanadas, of course. All that. Empanadas.
Empanadas.
Yes, all árabes or salada or caprese, I think. Anyway, I take all of that with me.
There are many,
yes. And
yes.
mate cocido I take. Taragüey.
Yeah. It's really good. Thank you, Ray, for bringing us your testimony as an immigrant who fled his country to seek other opportunities. I admire your strength and wish you the best for the future. We stand with Ukraine.
Thank you.